They lied about you. They beat the snare drums of war to fight a battle they've already won. With your tools, they drive their troops into battle, armorless, fearless, ignorant to destruction. You've given them the power to experience death and live to tell the tale. But they preach your story like a fairy tale.
Come on. Come on! Come on! Come on!
Now you go forth and remind them of the life you've given them. Go forth, Oberon.
What's up, Dank homies? Nero here, and today we're gonna be talking about Oberon. So as you guys may know, Oberon just got an amazing rework, and a lot of people are giving this work from a lot of negative light, probably because they don't know how to use him now and they're trying to use him like before. But yeah, this Warframe is pretty dang powerful, and today I'm going to show you guys how to be stupid strong with Oberon. So most likely you've already heard a general explanation of the different abilities, but I'm going to quickly go through each one of them and show you guys how to use them, how you should go about using them. I also want you to keep in mind that Oberon is a Warframe that really does not work well in the simulacra room. He works amazingly outside the simulacra room, where he can take advantage of infinity boosts, he can take advantage of syndicate procs, and he can even take advantage of focus abilities as well, much better outside of the simulacra room. So Oberon's first ability is called Smite, and when you cast this ability on an enemy, you will deal radiation and impact damage straight away on them, as well as spawn a few orbs that go out from the enemy and deal 35% of the health plus shields of the enemy which you casted on. So where the heck did I spawn the enemy? I'm gonna cast the ability on this level 100 Arid Butcher, and you see like it's only a level 100 Arid Butcher. You could like one-shot these guys. Why didn't it kill it right away? Like, why should it take 2 casts to kill it? Well, here's the deal. It's not meant to kill the enemy you cast it on. It's actually meant to damage the enemies that are around the enemy that you cast it on. So let's look at this for example. Let's say we have a bloater and a bunch of little crawlers. So if I was to cast the ability on a crawler, it's barely doing any damage to these crawlers over here. But if I cast the ability on the bloater, it's gonna one-shot everything around it. Well, almost one-shot the crawlers. And it's barely doing any damage to this bloater. Actually, I think the bloater is spawning more enemies. Yeah, he is. But now, it's barely doing any damage to the bloater, but I'm using the bloater's health as ammunition to hurt the other enemies. So you don't want to spam the first ability over and over again expecting to kill that one enemy. You just want to use it to kill the enemies around that stronger enemy. So Oberon's second ability is called Hallowed Ground, and when you cast this ability, it will spawn an arc of fire, I guess you can call it, or radiation, down on the ground in a circle like motion, and the more range you have, the more circle it would be. So if you have full range, it will be a complete 360 degrees around you, but I don't have full range and it's not really that needed, so this is what I have here. And when enemies walk on it, they'll take damage over time. In fact, they'll take damage 2 times a second to be exact, which is very important, and I'll tell you why that's important later. And this is really good for crowd control, and if there's a big group of enemies coming in one direction, you spawn that down, and then they will all be confused and start killing each other. So why is this so important that you know that it does 2 ticks of damage per second? Well, Hallowed Ground has an augment that allows you to just burst the rest of the damage it would have procced like in an instant just by recasting the ability. So if I was to, let's say, stand up here and I cast it, you see a little bit on the floor, you can press it again, you see that little puff. That means that it just like, it almost counted down all of its own duration and just put it all into one big burst of damage. Now the reason why this is important is because that means the more duration you have, the more damage you'll have with the ability. So you'll have power strength, of course, but the more important thing you should have for this ability is duration, which will make this ability your main damaging ability. So just to show an example of that, you're killing these guys like in an instant. Now, of course, like, these are just level 100 crawlers, and I could demonstrate them on some stronger enemies, which I will in a little bit, but I want to do that outside of the simulacra room, because, like I said before, the simulacra room does not do Oberon any justice whatsoever. Now, Oberon's third ability is called Renewal. Now, what this ability will do is, as soon as you cast it, it will heal all of your allies within a certain radius, and as long as you're channeling the ability, you will always regen 64 health per second. So I'm just gonna quickly spawn these crawlers real quick and have them attack me, and you'll see just how fast I regen my health. They're like barely able to do anything to me. But now it's simple, I can get all my health back just by walking away. Like, in a normal mission, you'll be walking away from the enemy anyway, so to sit here and just, you know, expect him to live forever, it's not very practical. But in every mission, you're always moving, so that is actually extremely good. And also, the regenerative thing over time, the 64 health over time, that goes to all of your allies as well, including things you cast the ability on, like Saren's skin or even Nidus's little maggots. One more thing that works great with Oberon's Renewal is Necros, especially with his Shadows of the Dead. As you can see, the Shadows of the Dead lose health over time, and when they're all out of health, they die. So pretty much what you can do is lay down your 2, and if they're in the hollowed ground and then you use Renewal, they all get an armor buff as well as health regen. So pretty much these guys will never die ever. And if the Necros has the armor or shield of shadows, shadow shield, I forgot what it's called, pretty much it's 90% armor reduction. Necros has health regen and extra armor as well as these dudes. So pretty much, let's follow me real quick, Keegan. Pretty much if we just go along here, and I don't even have to be within range of him. Now that it's not range based, it's just gonna last forever as long as I have the thing channeling. And if he kills enemies, like so, I'm getting some of that shared affinity. And that shared affinity is going to my Rakdos Ceranos, which also gives me more energy. So pretty much the more he kills, the more invulnerable he is. Like so. Now last but not least, Oberon's fourth ability is called Reckoning. Now what this ability will do is it will pick up enemies in the air and slam them back down on the ground, knocking them down, and enemies that haven't been affected by this, they'll become blinded and be open to finishers and finisher damage, or stealth damage. So now I'll show you how that ability works now. And pretty much it stops them in their tracks, but you see it doesn't do that much damage. But now enemies that are affected by radiation, it does extra damage to them. So now you can see it did a lot more damage this time. But now let me go ahead and okay. So now what you want to do is cast your second ability first, and the reason that being is enemies that are on the hollowed ground, if you cast your fourth ability, Reckoning, then it will permanently strip 30% of their current armor. So if you go ahead and cast this down, wait for them to walk on it, then throw this, you see that you already removed a good bit of their armor and their health, and then you just blow them up. So now that we've already demonstrated how to use the Warframe, now I want to show you guys my build. So first, here is my unlimited health build. This is the one that you'll be using with your Renewal. First, I have Corrosive Projection just to help out the team so that they can do more damage to Grineer enemies. And if you're not going against Grineer, you just switch that up. Really simple, really easy, self-explanatory. We have Power Drift for a little bit of extra power strength and a chance to resist knockdown. That is really good for Oberon. You have Primed Continuity for power duration. Not that needed, but it does help out with the energy over time. For this build, you'll be getting 0.5 energy per second, which is extremely good. You really won't be worrying about energy that much, especially because you have the Rakdos Ceranos to give you more energy over time or as you get affinity. You have Prime Flow for more max energy. You have Rage for when you get hurt, you get more energy, but it's not that needed. If you want, you can even switch that out for Phoenix Renewal, which Phoenix Renewal, what that will do is if your enemy or if your ally becomes downed, then they will automatically resurrect with 50% of their maximum health, which is really debatable. You can go with either one. If your team wants you to use this, then go with that. But what I would just go with is just Rage. Not that important because they get downed and you pick them back up anyway. Then there is Vitality for extra health. We have Armor. These two here makes him very much more tanky, especially the fact that he gets more armor with his Renewal, and he gets the health regen. You get Streamline and Fleeting Expertise. You don't need them to be maxed because the maximum amount of efficiency you can get is 175%. And we have Transient Fortitude for extra strength so that you can get a little bit extra healing. Also for this build, I would recommend you go ahead at the start of a mission, you tell your team, hey, I want to give everybody Renewal. You have everybody come close together, you cast your 2 ability, have everybody stand on it, and then you cast Renewal. That way everybody will have extra armor and health regen for the duration of the mission, as long as you have energy and as long as they don't become downed. And if somebody becomes downed again, just tell them to do it all again. Say, hey guys, come near me, I'll give you unlimited health regen. The damage dealer build. This is going to be that build where you're going to be like the guy of the team to get the most damage and the most kills most of the time. Unless you have a Banshee, then that gets pretty annoying. But the build is roughly kind of the same, except we have a higher level Streamline, we have Stretch, we have Overextended, and Narrow-Minded. We don't have any survivability mods because we won't need them because we're going to kill the enemies pretty fast anyway, so you won't need the survivability mods. And you can just jump around. Then we also have Blind Rage for more strength. And like I said before, here goes the augment that allows for your 2 ability to be triggered or just pop all of its duration into just 1 second. And that's where we have a lot of duration here. That's why we have Narrow-Minded and Prime Continuity, so that we can get as much damage as possible out of this thing. But if you want to have a little bit more range, then what you can do is go with a half-ranked Narrow-Minded and just replace that there, and you'll have more range, you'll have a little bit less duration, but it's not that big of a difference. Just pick between the two, whichever one you like more. I prefer this one because I don't really mind too much about the lower range because of the missions that I do play, but if you really need that range, then switch those things out. So as for equips for Oberon, I recommend the Rakta Cernos and the Rakta Dark Dagger. Reason being is that both of these weapons have a Syndicate proc, which will give you energy every time you get a certain amount of affinity, which is easy to get with Oberon. Now, the Rakta Dark Dagger is special because it has a passive where if you attack enemies that have radiation proc on them, you will get overshields, which will also help with Oberon's survivability. And that was actually told to me by someone on my Discord by the name Thor. Shout out to Thor, thank you for that information. But one very important thing that you should probably have for Oberon is a Kubro, and a Kubro, which is the Sahasa Kubro. The thing about this Kubro is that it will dig up energy every 10 seconds, 75 energy to be exact, and that will really help Oberon with his problem with energy. Now, as for the tunnel school that I use with Oberon, I use Madurai. The reason why I use Madurai is because there is a branch where you can actually make your weapons and everything use bleed procs and use slash damage, and this also applies to Oberon's first ability, which at default it will do radiation damage, but now after you actually use it or use the Madurai, then it will do slash procs and do slash damage and really do some pretty nasty damage to the enemies. Unfortunately, Madurai does not work for the second ability, but being that it does work for Smite, it makes it really good against when you see heavier units that don't die instantly from your 2, which will probably be a long time from when you start a mission. You can also see in the gameplay in the background that I'm using my 2. You can see the range that I have on that thing, and it is just one-shotting all these enemies in Hydron, and it does that all the way to wave 20 and even beyond that. But it's really good for this mission, and eventually when you're like facing level 80 enemies, that's when you're going to want to use the 2, then use your 4, then pop the 2. Now before I close out this video, I want to give a quick shout out to all of my Patreons, new and old. Thank you guys so much. I'm glad that you guys are willing to support the content and that you guys are enjoying it. Also, I'm sorry that this is just a screenshot of the list of patrons that we have, but when I remake the outro, I'm going to have a scrolling credit style thing for the patrons on the outro, so that way you guys get your recognition in every video. And there you have it, how to build and how to use Oberon. And with seeing what you guys just saw, I really do not understand why people are complaining so much about Oberon, especially about the change to his third ability, that now it is a channeled ability, which to me makes it so much better, because now it's not something you have to recast over and over again. You can just have it in relax and stay still somewhere, and they'll always have their regeneration going on for them. Like, how I see it is that you're either a damage frame or you are the healer frame for your team. There is an in between, but it is very thin lined in between there. So really, just in conclusion, you should either commit to the damage side and build it properly, or you can commit to the healing side and do that properly. And so in conclusion, I think this Warframe is amazing. I see him as maybe one of my top favorite frames, and if I had an arcane energizer, then energy would be a lot better for me. But I really think the only change that should be done to him is the energy consumption, because it does take a lot of energy. But that's all I have to say for today's video, and if you guys enjoyed today's video, go ahead and leave a like, and if you haven't subscribed yet and you want to become a part of the Dank Swag family, then go ahead and do so, and I will see you guys later. Peace.
Don't change, don't change, don't change. Even though life ain't the same. Say, don't change, don't change, don't change. Life gon' make it happen anyway. Say, don't change, don't change, don't change. Even though life ain't the same. Say, don't change, don't change, don't change.